Baruch Hashem. Let's see, we'll start in 30 seconds or so. Yeah. B'Shem Hashem na'aseh v'natzliach, Shiur Torah, Bruchim Habayim. We're back here on our Tuesday night War of Amalek series based on the Kuntres by Rav Elchanan Wasserman. Tonight's shiur is going to be for the Refuah Shlema and Hatzlacha Rabbah for Rav Efraim ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, Sarah bat Levana, Avi Mori David ben Esriah, Imi Moreti Doris bat Jorah. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu bless all of those that continue to support our organization, whether it's by donating on our website, BeEzrat or via YouTube or Facebook or all the other different ways that you can donate, or those that are actually contributing their time by ordering some things from our Kiruv store and distributing in their communities. Baruch Hashem, we had many packages that went out over the last week and a half or so. There's many more orders that came in over the last couple of days, and it seems like there's going to be a growth of over 100% in distribution in the past couple of weeks, Baruch Hashem. So, Ashrechem Yisrael that are continuing to do kiruv, to help Am Yisrael do tshuva, to help Am Yisrael do mitzvot, get closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is something that is the most extraordinary and important mitzvah of the generation, to do kiruv, whether it's doing kiruv by supporting, by donating your money, or it's donating your skills, or it's donating your time by distributing the information. Either way, there's a lot to do, and BeEzrat HaShem, more and more people will continue to do so. Baruch Hashem. So tonight, Rabotai, we're going to continue the holy words of Rav Elchanan Wasserman and answer the question that should be on people's minds when they hear different speakers, and some people today, because of how easy it is to get lectures, to get videos, how accessible it is, people sometimes like to delve into multiple rabbis, multiple influences, and without really putting so much thought behind it, and sometimes even get their so-called Da'at Torah and final decision-making information by simply choosing whichever one fits them best. But the question should be, who's influencing your rabbi's da'at? Who's influencing your rabbi's opinion? Now, in the world of politics becoming mainstream and practically a standard in every household, it seems like, it's become more and more common for even rabbis to have thrown their politics into the mix. There was a recent court ruling where in America, where the division between state and religion is no longer an absolute, where they're now saying that even the religious leaders, the churches, and so on, could also state their opinion about politics, even though it kind of negates and blurs the lines between state and religion. But needless to say, is it a good thing? Is it a good thing that your rabbi likes to talk politics? That he has a lot of opinions about coronavirus, about who's the president, about the current affairs, so much so that you see that the majority of his lectures are talking about it. Is that a good thing? Rav Elchanan Wasserman's War of Amalek series will delve into this very relevant matter in order to understand the outcome of this new influence. It'll put things in perspective and allow us to understand a little bit more about the importance of who we're being influenced by. Now, in section 28, Rav Wasserman continues to build on what we started last time, where he says that unlike the past generations, where the heretics, those that went against the Torah, would stand behind the scenes like a George Soros type of figure and try to put people in place and position of power by empowering some unknown rabbi in order for him to, in essence, give them the so-called kashrut. But in our generation, which needless to say is also our generation that we live in, these heretics have sometimes become the leaders, have actually become the rabbis themselves. And they teach all types of new ideas that have an influence, have an impact on people's lives. Some of them have even got into government. Some of them have, positions of power beyond the pulpit. And you have even entire organizations that are supposed to be representatives of the Jewish people, but yet when you look at their religiosity, on one end they're saying they're Orthodox, they're the rabbinical leaders, they're those that have Torah, but when you look at their work and what they spend most of their time on, you see that literally nearly 100% of their time is delving into politics. Is that a good thing? Well, Rav Wasserman says that in the past generations, in the generation that he was in, this led to a lot of problems because these so-called leaders that spend more time in politics than they do in learning Torah ended up causing not only a lackings in their own Torah learning, but also lackings in their community's understanding of what Torah even is. And unfortunately, more and more people continue to choose Erev Rav rabbis to be their influence, or a rabbi that may not be Erev Rav, but is a type of rabbi that likes to invest more time into politics than they do into Torah learning, and sometimes even put the political and secular knowledge on a higher pedestal than they do in Torah. Now, when Rav Efraim, my dear Rav, was younger, he didn't know what a Reform rabbi is. Those things weren't really very common in Israel when we were younger. And he asked somebody, what is a Reform rabbi? I mean, he has a kippah on, what's just like the other one, no? He says, no, a Reform rabbi can be explained by a story. In the world of Torah, usually stories are the best way to explain things. He says, there was a guy that came to visit America and wanted to know where the local rabbi is, and they told me, oh yeah, this rabbi is over there. He lives in such and such address, you can go over there. Now he didn't know what a Reform is, what a conservative is, Orthodox, he didn't know anything, so he just went. Knocks on the door, and as you would have it, a woman without arms and legs, meaning she doesn't cover half of our body, opens the door. Says, hello, how can I help you? The guy is shocked. Says, can I see the rabbi lives here? Oh yeah, sure, yeah, the rabbi's here. Let me see if he's available. She goes and checks. And while she's checking, he's looking around. He sees statues everywhere, pictures of all types of politicians, all types of things that are not very common for the rabbis that he's used to have. And then she comes back, says, yeah, the rabbi is available. You can go to the back. And as he's going into the house, he sees more and more of these strange things, and he gets to the back. It's Shabbat, so he was expecting to see maybe the rabbi having lunch or finishing lunch, with his family, but he doesn't see any of that. He goes to the back of the house. He says perhaps maybe they're having their seudah or their enjoyment in the backyard. But as he gets closer, he sees there's no one there, and then he opens the door and he sees that the rabbi is working under his car, fixing the different mechanics of the car on Shabbat. And he says, on this I said the verse in the Torah where it says, Goy gadol atzum v'rav. where the Torah says it's about Am Yisrael, it's a great nation, it's huge, it's awesome, but the Chachamim like to, use the words of the Torah to say, have different meanings also. Sometimes when they're mocking something or trying to deliver a certain message, it says, this rabbi is not a regular rabbi. He's a goy gadol. He's a big goy. He's a tzum v'rav. This is the rav. This is a big erev rav. In so many words, a person that does not know the difference between an erev rav and a rav that has da'at Torah will not really understand the picture until they start learning Torah. In fact, sometimes you have even rabbis themselves not understanding the difference between them and the ones that what they're supposed to be presenting. And Rav Wasserman says, since so many people have empowered these erev rav, these politicians that dress up like rabbis, to be in a position of power, we have a new problem. What is this new problem? He says, all of this has come to us where there's now aniyut da'at Torah. Since these erev rav, these political rabbis, have a poverty when it comes to Torah knowledge, this aniyut da'at Torah goremet leshibush hadeot. It causes others, those that are influenced by them, those that are learning from them, listening to them, to also have deformed understandings of what real da'at Torah is. As the Gemara says in Masechet Bava Kama, in page 92, poverty follows after the poor. What does that mean, poverty follows after the poor? So the Gemara has a section in Bava Kama where the Chachamim discuss different statements that are common in their days. For example, this one where Rava says to Rabba Bar Mari, from where can we learn the source of this thing that people say poverty follows after the poor? And he said to Rava, he says, we learned it in the Mishnah, in Masechet Bikurim. In the 3rd chapter, Mishnah number 8, where it says in the times of the Bet HaMikdash, the wealthy people would bring their bikurim, which was their first ripening fruits of the 7 species, which the Torah praises Eretz Yisrael with, and they'd bring it to the Bet HaMikdash. So the rich people would bring this bikurim in baskets of gold and silver, while the poor people would bring their bikurim in baskets that were of willow, twigs, cheap basket. And the poor people would give their basket and the bikurim to the Kohanim, and the Kohanim would keep all of it, both the fruits as well as the baskets. But the wealthy people, they would give them the fruits but take back the expensive baskets. So the Chachamim say, on this we see that, look, even in this case, the poor, the poverty follows the poor, meaning the poor is giving even more of himself than the rich guy. Perhaps they were trying to increase the significance of the poor man's basket by also taking his basket himself. But at the end of it all, practically speaking, the poor man suffered a greater loss, if you will. Further, the Gemara says another conversation between these two sages. From where can we learn the source of the thing that people say that it's a bad palm that grows next to barren trees. It says, well, this thing is written in the Torah. It's also repeated in the prophets. And a third time, it's also repeated in the writings. And on top of it, it's mentioned in the Mishnah and the Breita. In the Torah, it says, Esav went to Ishmael and took Machalat, the daughter of Ishmael, as a wife for himself. The bad palm is Esav. The barren tree is Ishmael. They grow next to each other. Esav went to Ishmael. In the prophets, it says, the boorish men collected around Yiftach, and they ventured forth with him, meaning he was no good, and he brought with himself more bad people. Another time it says in the writings, every bird dwells with its kind, and a person with someone similar to him. That the Mishnah says that whatever is tameh, whatever comes out of it is also tameh. Or that it's not for nothing that the starling went to the raven, because they're similar species. In so many words, what the Rambam said in Ilchot Deot, that you are going to be influenced by your surroundings, is the outcome of everything that's stated here in the Gemara. Bad people attract bad people. A liar attracts liars. If you're a liar, you'll have a leader that's a liar, whether that leader is a rabbi, a boss, a politician, or whatever it is. Someone that's not straight is going to attract someone that's not straight. Someone that is straight, someone that's honest, someone that has integrity is going to attract the same thing. Esav was attracted to Ishmael. Why? Because both of them were Shaim. At least at that time, even though sages say that later on in his life, Ishmael did tshuva, but his descendants certainly did not do tshuva, and are bringing a lot of harm to Am Yisrael to this day. But the point is that the Chachamim had explanations for every statement. And they said that when it comes to the poor people, poverty follows them. And the Ben Ish Chai explains in a story where he says, a way to understand this is that there was once a rich man who wanted to buy a new piece of jewelry. But he said to himself, why should I go to the store that I usually go to and spend another $100,000? Let me go to the store where the poor people buy. I'll buy from there. Save me $100,000. At the same time, a poor man in the community said, I've saved for the last 10 years all this money where I could finally buy a piece of jewelry from the rich man's community. Why should I only wear the poor man's jewelry? It's time that I buy myself something to feel rich. And both go to the stores. The rich man goes to the poor man's store and he buys a ring for $1. The poor man goes to the rich community store and he buys something with 10 years of savings, something very expensive. Both come to the synagogue, and as soon as they come, the people say, oh, wow, to the rich man, look at this new ring that you have. This is absolutely amazing. Wow, we've never seen such wood. We've never seen so. Wow, you must have really been selective with your jewelry, and they're praising his $1 jewelry. While the poor man is waiting to get attention, to his dismay, as soon as people look at him, it's like, well, where did you get this fake gold? It looks real. Because no, it's not fake, it's real. And the diamond's real too. Yeah, right. It's not real. Come on, stop it. Where'd you get it? One of these toy boxes, or you painted it? How'd you do it? Because no, really, it's real. I saved for 10 years, all of it. And no one would believe the poor man. Says the Ben Ish Chai, from here we see exactly what the Gemara says, the poverty follows after the poor. Even when the poor man finally bought something from the rich community, no one would believe him. In their eyes, they have a stigma on him. That's it. This is what he is. He can't get out of it. Says Rav Elchanan Wasserman, the same thing impacts the world of Torah. כי שיבוש הדעות גורם להתמעטות לימוד התורה וחוזר חלילה. He says the same goes with the Torah. When one who has poverty in Torah knowledge, yet decides to teach others, all he ends up producing is other people with poor Torah knowledge. The fact that he spends his time thinking up his own convoluted ideas that are not sourced anywhere in the sages, anywhere in the Torah, the fact that he spends all of his time reading and delving into foreign subjects that are outside of the world of Torah, whether it be politics or philosophy or whatever it is that people delve into, this not only hurts his own Torah knowledge to the point where he himself is lacking in Torah knowledge, but it'll influence whoever is actually watching him and is relying on him to be the pillar of truth, the pillar of Torah. But Rav Elchanan Wasserman says no. This ends up being a domino effect. People's poor selection of where they get their Torah ends up creating more damage for them than they can imagine. And on this, he says, we see the words of the Gaon Mivilna come to light, where he says on the Gemara in Masechet Brachot, page 5a, אם רואה אדם שייסורים באים אליו, יפשפש במעשיו, פשפש ולא מצא, יתלה בביטול תורה. The Gemara says, if a person sees that suffering has come upon him, he should investigate his own actions. Where have I sinned? Maybe if he's losing money, he should check, am I giving the proper maaser? Am I doing business honestly? Am I keeping Shabbat properly? Issues of Kedusha, Brit. Is his wife modest? All types of things that influence Parnassah. He has to delve into it. He has suffering. Gemara says, if you have suffering, that means that Hashem is sending you a message. But what if Fishfesh velo matzah, he looked and he couldn't find that he's doing anything wrong. The Gemara says if he couldn't find anything that he's doing wrong, then he should assume that it's because of bitul Torah, meaning not studying Torah enough. And the Gaon Mivilna has an extraordinary question on this. He says, how could this be? Well, we all know that the sin of bitul Torah, meaning not studying Torah enough, like you're supposed to, is one of the greatest possible sins. Just like we know that learning Torah is one of the greatest mitzvot. So, after there is such a big sin, when we know it's such a big sin not to learn Torah, how could it be that this guy that got suffering investigated his actions but couldn't find anything, so therefore it should be the biggest sin? How does that make sense? Says the Gaon Mivilna. This is what the Gemara is telling us. The reality is that he looked at his actions and did not find any of his own wrongdoing, not because he's not doing anything wrong, not because he's so holy and he is studying enough and he's giving enough tzedakah and everything is perfect. No, that's not the reason why he didn't find anything. Rather, it's the opposite. He couldn't find anything in his own actions because he did not learn enough Torah. Because had he learned enough Torah, certainly he would know and understand where his sin is. And that's why the Gemara is telling us that if he has suffering and he can't find a reason why, blame it on Bitul Torah. Not that Bitul Torah is the only mistake that he made. Rather, the reason why he doesn't know why he has so many problems is because he didn't learn Torah. And therefore he does not even know what his sins look like. Many times you have different people, sometimes they're leaders, sometimes they're community members, that like to state their opinions about important subjects, about any subject. Sometimes people just like to hear themselves talk. And when you tell them that, well, you realize that there is a da'at Torah about this. There's an halacha, there is a gadol that spoke about this already. And unfortunately, when a person does not know Torah, they're more likely to dismiss da'at Torah and just say, nah, come on, I don't agree with this rabbi. What, the Rambam says this? I don't agree with what the Rambam says. What, Rabbi Ovadia said that? Listen, I'm not a big fan. I don't agree. I think he made a mistake there. What, the rabbi said you should do this? No, I think they mistake. Look, we have this, we have that. The less a person knows about Torah, the more likely they are to dismiss da'at Torah and treat it as if it's just another opinion. As if the opinion that he has is on the same level or even in the same world of magnitude as what da'at Torah really is. And unfortunately, sometimes this is something they learned from their source of influence. Call it rabbi, call it podcaster, call it whatever you want to call it, because sometimes the way that the rabbi they have chooses to communicate the information is also in his own opinion, where he's also dismissing da'at Torah. He's like, yeah, well, Rav Ovadia said this, or Rav Vosner said that, or Rav Moshe Feinstein said that, but I think perhaps maybe if they knew all the information we know now, they would change it, or I disagree, and in essence minimize da'at Torah. And there couldn't be a worse thing for them to do when they do this in front of people, because when they minimize da'at Torah in public, even if that public is in front of their community of 10, 20, 50 people, that will have more impact, negative impact, on their community than 10 good lectures that they're giving would have on positive. That's the way the Satan works. And that's why the Gaon Mivilna says, if he sees that he has problems, that he has suffering, but he doesn't understand where, because he can't find a sin in himself, he should know for sure the only reason why he doesn't know which sin is causing the problem is because he did not study enough Torah in order to understand the difference between what's allowed and what's not allowed, what's da'at Torah and what's against the Torah. So what is he doing with his time? Many times you meet people where they are convinced that they know the entire Torah. Like they say about Rabbi Yonatan Eibishitz. When he was 2 years old, he was a very clever little boy. he tells his father, Abba, I know the entire Torah. His father, there was a big Chacham, said, oh, already you know the entire Torah? I know the entire Torah. How do you know the entire Torah? He says, well, Abba, I know the entire Aleph Bet. And the Torah was written in Aleph Bet, in the Hebrew alphabet. So therefore, I know the entire Torah. Now this clever little boy ended up becoming one of Gdolei Yisrael. Unfortunately, sometimes people that are not even Ktanei Yisrael, not even the small ones among Am Yisrael, think the same type of logic as a 2-year-old kid. Where they think because they know maybe a little bit of alphabet, maybe they heard some shiurim here and there, maybe they read a few books, therefore they think they know Dat Torah. I remember years ago when I asked Rabbi Efraim about a certain situation that was happening. It was a big machloket between different big rabbis. And I said, well, how come it's so easy to pick the side of Rabbi Vadia over this other rabbi? He's also a big rabbi. He says he's a big rabbi in certain aspects, but not in being a Talmid Chacham. I'm like, what do you mean? But he's teaching already for 30, 40, 50 years also. He says, just because you're teaching for 40, 50 years doesn't mean you're a Talmid Chacham when it comes to halacha, when it comes to Da'at Torah. There's a difference. There's levels. There's levels. The general public that does not know what Da'at Torah is, unless they themselves learn a lot of Torah, to them it seems like a personal preference, where to choose, what's right and what's wrong. And the less people know Torah, says Rav Elchanan Wasserman, the more of a problem this creates. Because then they end up choosing the wrong leader because they like the fact that he talks about the current affairs in politics, in business, in all types of conspiracies. If you haven't noticed, since the coronavirus started years ago, and even though it's been already long gone, the same group of rabbis that build themselves a stage discussing the conspiracy, discussing the vaccines, becoming biologists, chemists, and astrophysicists all in one, somehow without even having college education to do with those subjects. They literally built an entire audience that just watches them, a rabbinical figure, theoretically, teaching them about conspiracies. Conspiracies of the Rockefellers, of the George Soros, of the government, of the Freemasons, the caged Masons, all types of nonsense that will never cause anybody to keep even a single mitzvah. And people think, donating to them is a mitzvah. It's not a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to help somebody publicize Torah, to help people do tshuva. By teaching the public about the Freemasons and all types of conspiracy theories, and even if the conspiracy theories are all true, is never going to help anybody do tshuva. It's never going to help anybody learn how to keep Shabbat. It's never going to help anybody decipher what's right and what's wrong even. But unfortunately, over the last several years, because people's knowledge of Torah has declined, their choice and preference of who they get influenced by, who they learn from, has deteriorated to the point where if the rabbi is speaking politics, that's my thing. If the rabbi is speaking supernatural stuff, that's my thing. He's teaching Kabbalah. You don't even know Parashat Shavua. You want to learn Kabbalah? Oh, Rabbi, listen, I know the Gemara is important, but listen, I want to hear all the Kabbalistic things. What Kabbalistic things, you chamor? What are you talking about? Learn the basics, understand how to keep Shabbat properly first. But unfortunately, people do not understand. And they end up choosing what's popular, what's more similar to what they like already from the secular world, the business talk, the political talk, the self-help guru talk. You have even a group of rabbis that have become coaches. Rabbi such and such is a coach. Coach? What coach? Either a rabbi or your coach. No, I'm a rabbi coach. Shem Yishmor v'Yatzil. In the time of Rav Eisel Charif, it was common for people that wanted to gain more prestige in the world, they would become a doctor rabbi. And Rav Eisel Charif says, if you see that the rabbi calls himself Dr. Rabbi, that means that the rabbi is sick, spiritually sick. But many times you see people choosing the different types of influences that are not going to give them Da'at Torah, but rather they're going to give them a new perspective on the political situation in Israel, in Venezuela, in America, in England, in wherever. Or they're going to give them a different perspective of the behind-the-scenes conspiracies that no one ever told you, except all the YouTubes that these rabbis got their research from. And unfortunately, this not only produces an audience that becomes even more ignorant than they were before, but it also ruins the rabbi further than what he ruined himself to begin with, because instead of learning more Torah to elevate himself and thereby elevate his audience, he is spending his time learning more and more foreign subjects until even the Torah that he knows becomes influenced by the secular knowledge to the point where the secular knowledge gains superiority over his Torah decisions. Rav Yitzchak Yosef, the Rishon LeZion, Shichyeh, recently told a story where he went to visit one of the important rabbis that are leading the Dati Leumi in Israel. Dati Leumi is Israel's version of modern Orthodox, if you will. And he wanted to find out what has happened with the Dati Leumi rabbis and different leaders that have suddenly become enemies of the Haredim. If you're Orthodox Jewish, whether you wear a black kippah or a different type of kippah, if you believe in a Torah, you know the importance of Torah, you should love the Haredim, you should support them, you should help them. Why are you going against them and saying that everybody should go to the army and all types of things that even the secular people don't say sometimes? So Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef wanted to find out what's the underlying cause here that this rabbi is saying such things. So he went to his house, and when he entered the house, as he was waiting for the rabbi, he saw that there's a bunch of secular newspapers on the table, which is absolutely forbidden. And he says to the assistant over there, what's this doing here? Yediot Achronot, Ma'ariv, all these secular newspapers, how can you have them here? The assistant looks at Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef and says, what are you talking about? The rabbi, meaning the Dati Leumi rabbi, he gets them every day and reads them. And Rabbi Yitzchak says, from there I already got my answer. I didn't need the meeting anymore. Now I know why this rabbi that has learned Torah, has lived a religious life, has suddenly changed to the negative and actually in agreement with the Zionist, lefty, liberal, and anti-Torah world. Because he is delving into foreign newspapers that are constantly speaking negative about the Torah, about the world of Torah, thinking that it's not affecting him because he thinks he is getting the news. In reality, the words of the Rambam are coming true inside that community, where the more they delve into the secular world, the more they accept the secular mentality into their own lives, the more they become even worse than secular people many times. Now, the rabbi can have the excuse, well, listen, the rabbi needs to know the news, needs to know what's going on. There's a very big difference between knowing the headline and delving into the articles on a regular basis. And even that sometimes is not even necessary. Now, when the rabbi's learning becomes inappropriate newspapers and journalists and podcasts and bloggers and all types of so-called literature that is foreign to the Torah and many times an enemy of the Torah, to such a point where he's spending a lot of his time learning this, even if he's learning Torah, his Torah knowledge and ability to decipher one thing from another in order to make the appropriate decision will be influenced in a negative way. Because this is the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the person, and that's why the Rambam says in Ilchot Deot chapter 2, halacha number 4, that a person will be influenced by his surroundings, whether he likes it or not. He will be influenced by whatever he allows to influence him. And the same thing goes for those that are watching him. If you watch a heretic long enough, you'll become a heretic. If you watch atheists, missionaries, all types of things like that, eventually you'll become just like them. In the times of Moshe Feinstein, Alav Shalom, Moshe Feinstein was a extraordinary gaon, tzaddik, anav, and to some that were not even the grains under his feet, it seemed like he was too lenient in certain halachot. Especially the way that he wrote, he was very short with many subjects of how he would make a leniency on something or choose the lenient side without giving much explanation. So those that were not aware of his greatness would criticize him. And one time Rav Moshe Feinstein writes to them, to his adversaries, that a response, and he says, while I'm happy that you are trying to rebuke me because you think that my leniencies are not valid, you should know that everything that I write is only Torah, because I have never let any secular book or subjects enter my mind. While you admit that you regularly delve into the secular matters, and thereby your opinions are influenced by them, and also by the opinion of what will people think, and have turned the community's chumrah, the community's stringencies, into halacha somehow. Or the hidu, the magnifying a mitzvah, that's not an obligation, but somehow you've turned that into a must-do. Whereas my words are only influenced by pure Torah. Can you imagine someone living nearly 100 years, never allowing any secular subject influence them in any way, shape, or form, but yet having such wide knowledge about every subject you could possibly comprehend? How is it possible? As I've said once and 1,000 times, and will say for another 1,000,000 times, all 7 wisdoms that exist in the world are inside the Torah. And only few extraordinary chachamim were able to pick certain things from the world, like the Rambam, whether it be philosophy or other things that he learned. He says, I only took these different wisdoms from the world in order to help me learn more Torah, because these other wisdoms are like little seasonings for the queen. But what people think is that they'll become smarter if they learn more philosophy. They'll become smarter if they learn more science. They'll become smarter if they become politicians. Not realizing that all the wisdom you can possibly need or have is already inside the Torah. And the more a person delves into other subjects, especially foreign and inappropriate subjects, the more those subjects are going to influence even their existing Torah knowledge. And this is why the ignorant say that the Torah ways, says Rav Wasserman, that we have seem rotten in their eyes, because they're clueless about Torah. And when you're clueless about Torah, what ends up happening is that you become spiritually sick to the point where what you view as straight is really crooked, and what you view as crooked really is straight. Because you don't understand what Da'at Torah is. You don't understand how a Talmid Chacham that has toiled day and night for many, many decades, how his mind even works. For that, I'll give you a couple of examples. There was once Talmid Chacham I was traveling and got to a certain town, and he needed a place to stay, especially for Shabbat. And he came to the synagogue and he was waiting to see who would show up. And shortly after he came, another man came in, sat down, and started reading Tehillim. So Talmid Chacham looked at him for a few moments and then got up and came up to him. Hi, Reb David. I hope you're doing well and your businesses are continuing to succeed. And who are you? He says, I traveled from such and such town, and I was hoping that somebody would host me for Shabbat. He said, sure, I'll be happy to host you, but I have to ask you, how did you know that I'm Reb David? So Talmid Chacham tells him, well, it's a long analysis. It's very, a lot of decisions had to be determined. Well, now you're my guest, says Rav David. I want to know, please tell me, how did you know that I'm Rav David? And how did you know my businesses are doing well? He says, well, listen, before I came to the town, I was told that this town has 10 Jews, and the rabbi's name is Rav David, and he has successful businesses. And there's also a gvil, rich person, that he is very well to do and part of the government here, and then there's also a sofer stam and a realtor. And when I looked at you, I said, certainly, this is not the gvil. Doesn't look like a gvil to me. If he was a gvil, he would come with several people. He can't be the sofer stam because he would have some ink on his fingers. And if you were to say, well, maybe I washed it, I looked at your hair and it was dry. And then I continued looking. I said, maybe he is the melamed of the kids, the one that teaches the young kids. But it's only 6:30 in the morning. And usually the melamed of the kids is not staying in the Bet Midrash at 6 o'clock in the morning. He has to attend to the kids at that time, get ready for them. So he can't be. And it certainly could not be the realtor, because the realtor, I remembered somebody told me the realtor's name was Shmuel. And you're David. He says, well, how did you know my name is David then? Oh, because on the way in, I saw the chair and it had the name David on it. The point is, the way that the Chacham's analysis was broken down gives us an idea, at least an idea, that their thought process is certainly not the same. But the Gemara gives an even better example. The Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin, page 104a, and continues into B, gives an extraordinary example of the great minds of Am Yisrael when they learn Torah. And the Gemara tells a story. There was once these two men, two Jews, that were taken captive on Mount Carmel, being captured. They would sell them as slaves, and it wouldn't be a good life, let's just say that. And these two were captive, and they were taken, and now to be traded somewhere. And as they were walking on the way, the one that captured them, the goy that captured them, was listening to their conversation as he was walking behind them. And one Jew said to the other, you know, a few miles ahead, there's a camel walking in front of us that's blind in one eye. And as he has on top of him, he's carrying two flasks. One that's containing wine and one that's containing oil. And there are two men that are leading this camel. One of them is a Jew and one of them is a Gentile. When the captor heard this, he said, you stiff-necked people, where do you know all this stuff? How do you know there's a camel led by two people, one of them is Jewish, one of them is not Jewish, what he's carrying? He has wine, he has oil. How could you possibly know any of this stuff? You can't even see them. So the Jew tells him, well, you see, as we were walking, I paid attention and I see that only one side of the grass is being eaten. The right side is being eaten. So it must be that the camel is blind in one eye, because he only eats from the side that he can see. Okay, well, how do you know what he's carrying? Well, as we were walking, I noticed that there were drips on the ground. Two types of drips. One drip sunk into the ground, made a little hole, and one did not, it floated. Wine, when it drips on the floor, it sinks into the sand. But oil floats, stays on top. Fine. How do you know that there's two people leading them and one is Jewish and one is not? You see, because on the way, I noticed that the people went to the bathroom. They relieved themselves at the side of the road. One relieved themselves close to the road. That must be the goy. And one relieved themselves a little further from the road because he's a Jew and he's preserving his modesty. The captor heard this and said, I must find out. And he started running forward to go catch up to the camel with the two people there. And he got there and he confirmed every single thing that this Talmid Chacham said. He came back and kissed them on the head and blessed Hashem. After he brought them to his house and made them a great feast and danced before them, saying, blessed is he who chose the seed of Avraham and gave them of his wisdom. Wherever they go, they become the princes of their masters. And he released these two Jews, and they went to their homes in peace. How did these two Jews that were captured and sold to be slaves gather this wisdom? Did they get it at Harvard? No. Did they get it at Yale? Absolutely not. Did they watch the news? Not even if it existed back then. Did they get it from some political leader or a rabbi that likes to talk about politics and all types of conspiracies and who and what and when is happening in the world? No. They got it from the same place that Moshe Rabbeinu and all of Am Yisrael got it from, which is the Torah that we received at Mount Sinai. The Torah that has no end, that is wider than the ocean, that contains all wisdoms, all good, and every possible pleasure that you could ever imagine is not equivalent to knowing what Da'at Torah is. Rav Elchanan Wasserman is telling us here, this deficiency in the generation has gotten to the point where people are not only choosing leaders that are misinformed, leaders that do not contain and have Da'at Torah, but it's creating a domino effect that their children and their children's children will continue to deteriorate even worse. Because if the parents are listening to a politician that's dressed like a rabbi, then guess what? The children will end up listening to the politicians. And the grandkids, who knows if they'll even believe in God? And we see how this has transpired over the last 80 years. Even though there was the Enlightenment, even though there was a lot of secularism and there was communism and there was a lot of things that Am Yisrael wasn't doing good. Hence the reason why Kadosh Baruch Hu brought the Holocaust. The religiosity back then was still much more significant than what we have today. The good news is that today HaKadosh Baruch Hu made Torah and truth so readily available that anyone that wants it can get it. It's easy to get, it's cheap to get, it's even free. But a person that is not really looking for the truth, a person that is looking for something that is in the same realm as what he enjoys from the secular world. He wants a rabbi that does podcasts about music, about all types of taboo subjects. He wants to learn from someone that's going to constantly talk about secular subjects. And even when he brings the weekly parasha, he's going to compare it to the president of the country. He's going to compare it to a secular author. He's going to compare it to some scientist that's in the news. He wants somebody that is well aware of what's really happening in the world. And what ends up happening, this guy that is uninformed and too ignorant to even know what Da'at Torah is, becomes even more ignorant about what Da'at Torah is. Because now he's choosing a speaker, choosing a rabbi, choosing a leader and a source of influence that is not really someone that's capable of giving him Da'at Torah. Instead, he's giving him his political opinion. Instead, he's giving him his conspiracy opinion. Instead, he's giving him all types of foreign opinions that are never going to influence him to get closer to Da'at Torah of Mount Sinai. So Rav Wasserman is in essence telling us the degradation of the generations continues to have an impact on us because it's not just the bad leaders, but rather that now these bad leaders have produced fruit where their students are not only don't have Da'at Torah as a result of listening to this leader, but they also do not even have Da'at Torah of how to choose the right leader, how to choose Da'at Torah, because they don't value the Torah. They don't see these two Jewish captors as anything special, just like the Goy didn't see them as anything special until he heard their truth and the wisdom that they had. And that's why, Rabotai Karim, anyone that wants to get closer and closer to Da'at Torah, to have access to Da'at Torah, has to be very, very careful with who they listen to, has to be very careful with what books they read, has to be very careful with what they allow into their house in every way, shape, or form. Just in the last few days, multiple people have asked me about some of these younger people that have started giving Torah videos. What do I think about this and what do I think about that? And generally, if someone is creating enough of a damage by their heretical opinions, I speak about it. But we've have too many wars that sometimes it's better not to mention every single heretic out there, because sometimes it makes them even more popular. But people ask me, what do you think about this one? What do you think about that one? And unfortunately, I see that people literally even if they've watched some of our lectures, they still haven't learned how to determine who to listen to, because their decision-making skills are not based on the Torah knowledge of the person, on the Yirat Shamayim of the person, on how this person presents themselves. Their decision-making is based on what other people said. Oh yeah, I heard this guy and people like him. Why? Why do they like him? Well, listen, he's really, he talks about Emunah. Okay, great, but why do people like him? Well, he's very modern. Okay, fine. I mean, have you looked at the way he looks? I mean, he looks more like, I don't know, a non-Jewish model than he does look like someone that you should learn Torah from. So, I mean, if that's the way you want to be, then why are you asking me the question? A person has to present themselves in a certain way. I'm not saying that everyone has to have log peot, the shtreimel, but there's a certain look that the world of Torah is supposed to present. Something at the very least more conservative. When the speaker is walking around with a half-open shirt like he just came out of a nightclub or a rock concert, I don't know if you can call whatever he or she says Torah. Because the Torah is conservative. The Torah is modest. Or another person. Oh, listen, is he good? Well, why do you think he's good? Well, my cousin listens to him. Does your cousin listen to him for a long time? Yes. How long has he been listening to him? Oh, he's been listening to him already for a year. Great. Does your cousin keep Shabbat? No. Well, if he's listening to him for a year, why is he not keeping Shabbat? Well, this guy said that if it's hard for you, you don't have to do it. And you're still asking me if you should listen to this person, this so-called rabbi or speaker or whatever he is? Or another chamol. Somebody sends me a video, says, listen, Rabbi, it's a little weird. I'm not going to ask you to watch this whole thing. I said, even if you ask me, I can't watch these videos. Tell me something specific, I'll answer it. Well, over here, he said that the Gemara is from the Erev Rav. What do you think of that? I said, what do I think of it? HaKadosh Baruch Hu just put a curse on this person. Every single Jewish sage in Am Yisrael that ever lived, including Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, Moshe Yaron, David Shlomo, Shmuel HaNavi, every religious Jewish person has just put a curse on this Rasha Merusha that called the Gemara from the Erev Rav. He's a chamor that with a degree. And you're asking me if he's good? People simply do not have the capability of making the right decisions because they're not looking for a source of truth. They're looking for something popular. They're looking for something that's similar to what the non-Jewish world, the secular world is looking at. They're looking to bring secularism into the world of Torah. And if that's what you're trying to do, then all you're doing is continuing the domino effect of negativity, of deficiency, of degradation of the generations. Rav Elchanan Wasserman, in essence, is trying to tell us these false Erev Rav leaders that were put into power did not just impact his generation. They've impacted the next generation, where the people have gone to the point where they rather pick a rabbi because of the way he dresses, because he has a shtreimel and he has peot, despite the fact that he promotes using ayahuasca and other hallucinogen drugs that are literally the Satan himself. You're listening to him recommending drugs, things that are illegal, things that are against the Torah, things that Rav Moshe Feinstein says, according to the Torah, a person that takes this deserves a death penalty. You're listening to him. Why? Because he calls himself a chassid? Because he has the garments? Which Talmid Chacham did you ask about whether you should listen to this before you decided to? Unfortunately, Rabotai, if you shop around in the world, Rav Elchanan Wasserman is telling us, you will find more garbage than you will find good. In fact, it wasn't just Rav Wasserman. It was Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who said in the Zohar Kadosh that in the generation before Mashiach comes, the majority of rabbis will be Erev Rav. And the same teachings was elaborated and explained by Rabbi Chaim Volozhin. The majority of rabbis in his generation, he said, were Erev Rav. This is not to speak against the good guys. The good guys don't need you to speak against them or for them. The good guys know what they're doing. They're good. This is to warn you that if you continue shopping around everywhere because of your different interests, then you are putting yourself and your ability to access Da'at Torah in jeopardy. You have to have a rabbi that has most of his time dedicated to learning Torah and helping Am Yisrael. If your rabbi is spending most of his time learning about politics, learning about conspiracies, if your rabbi admires the Pope and other Reshaim, if your rabbi says things that are foreign to the Torah, like God needs you or God has a body, or all types of other convoluted heresies that are out there, then you have a very, very serious problem. Because you're putting yourself in a position where you're not going to even know the difference between what Da'at Torah is and Da'at of a person. You need to learn from the right sources, from the right places, and it'll take time and effort and complete dedication in order for you to clean up whatever filth you've allowed into your mind. Because if you just think this is extreme, or it's too much, or you could just do whatever you want, by all means, suit yourself. Everyone has to make a choice in this world. People like to call it free choice. But anyone that understands reward and punishment, one of the 13 principles of faith, knows that the last thing we have is free choice. It's definitely not free. We have choice. We can make whatever choice we want to do, but it's not free. For every single mitzvah, you will be rewarded. And for every single sin, you will be punished. Listening to heresy is not just bad. It's a sin. A very big one. In many aspects, even worse than looking at immorality. Because the immorality may influence you for a certain amount of time, but you could overcome it. But heresy could literally influence your entire life. Be very careful with your neshama. HaKadosh Baruch Hu put it in you in order for you to take care of it. And BeEzrat HaShem, each and every one of us will take care of that precious neshama and be able to learn Torah, learn Da'at Torah, understand that Da'at Torah is available, but you just have to do everything in your power to get it and hold on to it at all costs. Thank you very much for learning with me. May Hashem bless each and every single one of you. And BeEzrat HaShem, we'll each continue to get closer and closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Anyone that wants to support and donate can go to our website, BeEzratHashem.org. You could also get a tefillin from our website. Baruch Hashem, we got a tefillin Rabbeinu Tam, Ashkenazi, Sfaradi, regular tefillin Rashi. Baruch Hashem, a few people that have ordered recently have given us some great feedback about it, of how much it's very different than what they're used to and how great it is and so on. So they said I should mention it to let people know that Baruch Hashem, it's not just words, but it's literally the best quality you can find for the money. So anyone that needs tefillin, only for Jews. If you're not Jewish, even if you're in a process of conversion, please don't order tefillin because we can't sell it to you yet. We'd be happy to sell it to you once you have become Jewish or right before, meaning after you already have a date of when you're going to convert and your rabbi approves for you to get tefillin at that time. Otherwise, if anybody needs, you could order them on the website. And of course, the AI rabbi continues to get more and more answers, continues to get better, and continues to impress people. I have even a couple of people that literally not only use it every day. I have one person that told me yesterday or 2 days ago that he has it in multiple phones. He says, just in case I'm not carrying this phone, I have multiple subscriptions because it's so important to have AI Rabbi, he says. It gives me all the answers I need. Go to airabbi.org. You can download the app. It's a relatively cheap subscription. You can subscribe for a year to save even more money, but it'll give you answers that are relevant, answers with sources, answers that can help your life, whether it's life of Torah, family, halacha, and so on. Kol tu b'chava tzlachim, BeEzrat HaShem. We'll learn again soon.